3 right now for our summer art camp. And today we are going to be doing a 2-part lesson that includes marbling paper, creating your own homemade marbling, and then also creating a print that you can print on top of your marbled paper or separately if you choose. So for today, I'm going to give you a supply list. And the things that you're going to need today is you're going to need some type of styrofoam to print. I've got these styrofoam sheets, but you may not have those at home. So you can use lots of different things. You can use a styrofoam plate. You can use, I took one of these little takeout containers, and the best way to utilize these, because this side has the divider, is to cut these in half so that you just have the lids to them, and then you can actually cut out just the square from that and utilize those for printing. So you're going to need some sort of styrofoam. You're going to need some white paper. I've got some white paper here. This is what we're going to actually use for both our marbling and for our printing. You're going to need some type of various food coloring. So this is just food coloring like you'd have at home. They come in different ones. They come in liquid and gel. The liquid is preferable because you can just kind of put droplets in there instead of having to scoop something out. So a liquid food coloring, you can get them in regular colors, you can get them in neon and pastels and all sorts of different things. If you do not have those, another option you could do is liquid watercolor. That will work as well. If you don't have the kind of liquid watercolor that's in bottles, you can even just get a little bit of the watercolor pans and mix it, and then we can dab that. But you're going to need some sort of food coloring. You're also going to need, in order to marble, you're going to need a foam shaving cream. You can get these all the time for $1, but it doesn't matter what brand it is, but it does matter that it actually foams. So if it's the gel kind, it doesn't work as well. You need the kind that actually foams when it comes out. If you don't have that at home, another option could be to use whipped cream. If you can use the kind in the canister, you can use the kind that you spray, but that costs a little bit more money, but it is an option. So you can use whipped cream or shaving cream. You are going to need some sort of ruler or scraper. So basically, once we've done the marbling on our paper, we're going to have to scrape that shaving cream or that whipped cream off. I'm using a plastic ruler. You can use anything that has kind of like a straight edge to it. You're going to need some sort of shallow pan or container. This is just a leftover cake container, like from a sheet cake at Walmart. I've got a little tray here. Anything like that you can put down. A sheet pan, anything like that would be perfectly fine. You're going to need something to actually stir and marble the color in there. So it could be a plastic fork, it could be a skewer, it could be a toothpick, anything like that will work just fine. You're going to need some sort of paint. I'm using black acrylic paint today. You are going to need to make sure that it's a craft or acrylic paint. You don't want to use a temper paint because it's too see-through to print for, to be able to print with. But I'm using black. You do not have to use black, but you do want to use a darker color, so a blue or a purple or something like that when you do your printing. The next 2 things are optional. As far as the brayer, this is a brayer. If you don't know what a brayer is something that you can actually use to spread out the ink. If you do not have a brayer at home, which most people are probably going to not have a brayer, a paintbrush would work perfectly fine to actually apply the paint directly onto that styrofoam. And then once we get that done and we lay it down, just something, I'm using an additional brayer to actually roll it out and put some pressure on it, but you can press it with your hand. If you've got a rolling pin at home, that would work too. You don't have to have anything fancy. And again, our handy dandy blow dryer. So in between, if we need to blow dry something quickly for the sake of this demo or for time at home, we've got our hair dryer. This is also a little bit messy because you are using shaving cream, you are using food coloring. So again, just like our markers that we had before, it's probably going to get on your hands if you don't use gloves. Because it's food coloring, you want to be careful for your clothing. because food coloring does not come out as easily as washable markers. So I do have some baby wipes with me and some paper towels because this is a little bit messier than some of our other ones. All right, so let's get started. This is really fun. Again, you can do this based on any age group. But we are going to start by our marbling. So to get started with that, it's pretty simple. What we're going to do first is I'm going to shake up my shaving cream can here. And again, you want the foam, you don't want the gel. And you can make these as big or as little as you choose. I'm choosing this wider pan just for I'm kind of using it based on the size of my paper. I have done smaller prints, so if you see my smaller prints here, I used half sheets, that's perfectly fine too. But I'm going to kind of spread it out based on the size of my paper. I'm just going to kind of squirt across here, approximately about the size of my paper. And then once I do that, I'm going to kind of just spread that shaving cream so that it covers that area. Now, if you've got a spatula or something, that probably could have worked better. But I'm just kind of spreading it out here so that we have a flat surface without holes in it of shaving cream. And this is fun. It smells kind of good. It's messy. I think anything where it's messy and you're creating, it's fun. So here I've got to go to my baby wipes here and get my hands clean. So now that I've kind of spread it out like that, it's messier than I thought it was going to be. But, okay, so the next thing, now that we have a good kind of flat surface of shaving cream, we're going to decide. Now, you can use as many or as few as you want, but I'm going to go in and I'm going to take my food coloring and I'm just going to put some drops. Now, you know with food coloring, it's very concentrated, so a little bit goes a long way. So you don't need a ton. And the more that you mix, you have to realize with color mixing, I'm sure you've probably learned about your primary, secondary, tertiary colors. Some of them mix to make a secondary, right? We have our primaries, red, yellow, and blue, that make our secondary colors, right? Green, purple, and orange. But what we need to be careful of, let me do pink here, is that if you mix these colors too much when you start your mixing process, you don't always get one of those really pretty colors if you mix too much. You can actually get like a dark green, like a mucky brown. So you don't want to mix too much, but you can see now I've got some dots of color in there. And now I'm just going to I'm going to start with a plastic fork, and I'm going to go in here now and I'm just going to kind of mix my colors here. And there's no right or wrong way to do this. You can swirl them around. If you feel like there's areas where you'd like to see more color, you can always go back in and add an additional color. So if you feel like, hey, that area there is really, it's got a lot of white in it, and I'd like to have a little bit more color in that area, you're more than welcome to do that. You can always go back in there, okay? I think I'm going to add a little bit more blue. I like blue. Blue is one of my favorite colors, so I'm going to add a little bit of blue, more blue in here. You can always add, but you can't take away, so just keep that in mind. But then you can go back in, and I think that blue, that vibrant blue, is just really pretty to do. So, okay, so now I've kind of got a good swirl design. Some people like more color, some people like more white. You can do the same thing with, if you wanted to do an actual design, like using a skewer or a toothpick or something like that. You can get some additional movement in there to get some swirls and things like that. So I'm just kind of playing around, but like I said, you can do as much or as little as you choose. And here's the fun part, but this is also the messy part. So I'm going to get some paper towels out here. So the next part is taking your piece of paper, and I'm going to bring my trash can out here. And now I'm going to place my paper over top my shaving cream, and I'm going to press down so that it covers as much of my paper as possible. So So you can kind of see it squishing out the edges. Now you don't want to just press hard, but you do want to make sure that you're kind of squishing it down and covering as much. Now here's the fun part. You're going to peel it up slowly, and it is going to kind of mess, and you can kind of, I missed that little part. It is going to mess with the design that you put on there. It's going to change. It's going to look a little bit different, and that's okay. And if I lay this one down, I'm going to do 2 of them. So the color on here is still the same. You can manipulate it more if you choose to. You can swirl it again, or you can add more colors, or you can leave it the way it is. Let me get my second sheet of paper here. And you can keep actually doing this until basically the shaving cream is gone, or you're out of paper, or you've had enough. So I'm going to squish it on there again. I'm going to peel this one back. And they're all going to be very different, but they're all very pretty. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to put this aside. And there's no clean way to do this, but now what I'm going to do is bring my trash can around here, and I'm going to take my ruler now, but you can use any kind of straight edge, and I'm going to just take and I'm going to wipe across. I don't know if you can see this with the camera, but I'm basically wiping off the excess shaving cream that's on the top, okay? I'm just going to get rid of that and throw that away. And you can see that what is left is now permanently in the paper. That's not going anywhere. It's actually swirled on there really well. Permanent colors, you can see how bright and vivid, and it actually is embedded in that paper now. So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to set this one aside here, and I'm going to bring this one close to the edge. And you wouldn't think, from as blurry as that looks, that you're going to get a nice clean color to it. But underneath all of that, that food coloring sticks to that paper. That pigment really sticks. There I go, scraping it off again. I'm going to set that aside. So it is messy, but it's fun. And now this one's a little bit more blurry. That's okay. Let me get that. Make sure that's off all the way on there. I did have a little bit left. There we go. And now it's still a little bit, it's not dry, but it's not wet anymore. It's to the touch. It's kind of soft. And I'm just wiping it now with my paper towel, but it's actually how it is now is how it's going to stay. It's not going to dry any differently. It is permanent. So there's the marbling. Look how pretty. Such vibrant colors. So that's part 1, okay? Part 2, we're actually going to make a print now. So we're going to move on to that styrofoam. Let me kind of move some of this stuff out of the way while these sit and dry. As they are right now, you can actually print on them immediately. If you want to, the paper is still a little bit kind of soft because of there's a little bit of liquid that's in that shaving cream, but you can actually print on them the way it is right now, so it's not a problem. But we're going to go ahead and move on. If you want them a little bit drier, you can take the hair dryer to them. But now I'm going to find a flat surface, something where I can start making a print. So this is where you're going to take your styrofoam. You can do these in different sizes. Some people just like a small square. Some people want a full-size print. I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut this a little bit smaller so that I can have a few different prints on mine. So if you don't have a full-size sheet of styrofoam, it's no big deal. But however you cut it is how it's going to print. So if you don't cut straight, it's actually going to show up. So you want to make sure that you cut it straight. So now I'm going to take my straight edge. Again, this can be your skewer. It can be that pencil that we used for our mandalas yesterday or from our last session. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy what I did earlier, which is, you can see this because I printed from it. I did bubbles. Now bubbles are really cool because Bubbles, you get the illusion of a bubble, but it's really easy to draw, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So, of course, I'm drawing on something a little bit smaller, but bubbles are nothing more than drawing a circle and then drawing a highlight, because when we see those bubbles out, when we blow a bubble outside, they're translucent. A lot of times they've got that iridescence to them, so they have a reflection. And to emphasize a reflection, all you have to do is just put a line around something. So I'm just going to draw some different circles on here for bubbles. I'm going to draw those reflection lines. They're going to be in different parts of here. You can have them go off of the page or off of the styrofoam, but I'm going to stop right there so you kind of can see the bubbles, the different circles on there. It's just a smaller version. So now that I have my print, whatever you choose to do, again, this is up to you. Some people just love the marbled print so much they want to keep it the way it is. You can do the same thing that we're doing on a blank piece of paper. If you don't want to mess up your marbled paper, you can do print separately, and that's no big deal. But I'm going to layer mine today. I'm going to choose this one to layer it on. And because this will actually fit, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my paper in half here so that I can make more than one print if I choose to later. Okay? So now, I don't know if you can tell, but I've got this clear sheet of plastic. You can use anything. I have another tray here. You could actually use a paper plate, but I'm going to squirt that black paint. You can use any color you choose, but I would suggest using a dark color. And I'm going to squirt some of that black paint on there. And I am going to roll my paint out. But if you have a paintbrush, you can even use your paintbrush to just smear it on there. But you can see how I'm applying the paint directly to what we would call the plate if it was printmaking. I want to make sure it's completely covered. And now I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to put it directly onto my marbled paper. And then I'm going to take my second brayer, but this is where I said you can push it down with your hand, you could use a rolling pin from home, you can use anything. You just want to make sure that it doesn't move. You want it to stay exactly where it is, because if it moves at all, it's gonna slide the print underneath and you will not get the exact print that you put in there. So you want to make sure you put some pressure on there. And then you want to go to the corner here and slowly peel it up. And now I've got bubbles on top of my marbled print. So you can see how if you have a little bit of black in here, that probably just means that, you know, it's your print pulling away, but the really nice thing about that is you can see those underlying colors, which bubbles have those underlying colors, don't they? If you see them in the sun, they're kind of that iridescent. And you can see now this print that we created, those areas where the bubbles are, is where I actually used my point to draw into that styrofoam. Now realize on this side, you can see that I didn't draw through. I didn't press hard enough that you can actually see it on the other side. I didn't push hard enough into the styrofoam to actually break through the styrofoam. You don't want to press that hard, but you do want to press hard enough that you kind of break through the surface to leave an imprint, okay? So that you are able to actually have almost like a stamp to create it. And you can do anything. You can draw, again, characters that you might like, things from nature. It could be a portrait, a self-portrait. It could be your name. It could be lots of different things. So whatever that interests you, you can print that on top of your paper. So this was our two-part marbled prints, and this is session 3. So I hope you enjoyed this. It's a lot of fun, Include your brothers and sisters on this one because I think that you guys will have fun. Be careful about the mess. Make sure that mom and dad is monitoring you with the food coloring because it can get a little bit messy and it can stain your hands. You'll see my hands are stained from playing around with it, but it's a lot of fun. So enjoy this lesson and I will see you next time.